I have a simple question. Is this person being exploited? The answer is probably simple for most people. Well, of course not. How can a man be exploited dancing in his underwear on a podium? Well, I'm sure you can immediately guess what I'm going to ask you. What if it had been a woman dancing on a podium in her underwear, purely for the entertainment and titillation of the men watching them? Would that be exploitative? I think common wisdom is that, well, yes, it would be. Women in those roles are being exploited and degraded and treated purely as objects of lust, and they're being objectified. This is a bad thing. We should support it. So why is it different if it's a man? Is it that men selling themselves in this way is a relatively new thing, that men didn't do this in our Western society until relatively recently? Is that what makes it different? Is it actually more the centuries of oppression of women that have forced them into roles where the role is sexual and that they have to sell their bodies or the view of their bodies to make money that is exploitative? Really, it's not the role itself, what the role involves doing, it's the fact that they have to do it, that they have no choice but to do that particular role. And similarly, men haven't been required to, again, until fairly recently, when suddenly it became something that men could choose to do if they wanted to because society changed. Well, it's possible. Or it could just be that we're really not thinking very hard about this, that we're running into the trap of running on autopilot when considering what it means to be a woman and to be exploited in your role. So I think I'd like to unpack a little bit what actually it means to examine this idea of what a overtly sexual role is for different genders and why it's oppressive and degrading, objectifying and bad for one and not for the other. Of course, you could ask why I'm bothering to ask this question. I mean, do I have nothing better to do on a Sunday evening of the weekend? Bank holiday coming up. Eating the life. No, this isn't really an abstract, esoteric argument purely to be held in internet chat rooms and actually have no bearing on real life. It's extremely pertinent. The adult entertainment industry, and by that I mean everything ranging from commercial sex work / prostitution, escorting, through to glamour modelling, through to pornography. All of this is a huge industry. Sex is one of the most basic needs of humanity, and it has been a commodity for the whole of civilization, and it will continue to be so until we evolve past this stage of humanity. I mean, the porn industry, just normal mainstream pornography, is bigger than Hollywood. Look it up. Look up the statistics. Porn is bigger than Hollywood. Okay, we're not talking about a few hundred people. We're talking about thousands of people, day in, day out, making videos for audiences, variety of people. This question needs to be addressed. In a truly free society, no one should be exploited, and we should always have the choice to do what it is we do without the experience of fear or even the threat of it. In a truly civilized society, no one should have to take on roles or do things because they really don't have an alternative. Okay, they may have chosen to do it, no one held a gun to their head, but actually, it was the Hobson's choice. There was no alternative. That's not a civilized society. But sadly, and newsflash to those of you that thought we were, this isn't a truly free society, and it's also not a truly civilized one. We are a very long way away from that, even in the gay hugging, marriaging, third wave feminist West. We are definitely not a free and truly equal civilized society. However, I struggle to conclude that a person of either gender really doing a role in the adult industry, okay, let's leave aside prostitution because this is a very murky area, given that it's illegal in many countries, and stick to sort of conventional adult industry that we all sort of know and love, sort of pornography and glamour modelling, strippers, things like that, things that are relatively well accepted, even if not thought terribly highly of. If someone's doing a job like that and they are being paid fairly, they've got decent working conditions, they get breaks, properly insured, they're not being forced to do anything dangerous or anything like that, and probably, hopefully, enjoy what they're doing, well, I can't really take any exception to this. I can't really, get up enough anger to sort of, go and reignite the suffragette movement and try and pry the chains off those women's unwilling limbs. This doesn't really compute for me. I mean, quite frankly, if someone can make a living I don't know, masturbating on camera, then I say good luck to them, because if I try doing that at work, I get fired. I define myself as a feminist and a masculinist. I believe in parity between both genders, but I also accept that they are not the same. Men and women are different. They are different but equal, and I think this is possibly an area where their differences mean that the roles could be seen as better for one gender than the other. I think men genuinely don't have a problem with being looked at or ogled. It's not a problem because we desire to be a potential mate. We want to attract mates that are pleasing to us. So I think if you are able to sort of go out and strut your stuff and be a pheasant and do that role and actually sort of switch off the fact that people looking at you might not be who you're interested in, well, then you're not really being compromised in any way. It's not a problem for you. And you also don't have that kind of worry that ultimately you are going to be taken advantage of and used in a way that is going to be shameful or degrading or against your will, because it just tends not to happen with men. Male rape happens, male prostitution and exploitation does happen. I'm absolutely not saying it doesn't. I don't think it's a sort of core feature of the modern male psyche, though. I don't think we really worry about it, particularly when we're going into areas such as this. I don't think a man walking onto a stripper stage worries that he's going to be having to fight women off to the point where his safety may actually be compromised, or where a woman might not know when to stop. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I don't think I've actually been to a male stripper bar frequented by women, so actually maybe they're all getting mobbed and ripped to pieces and I just don't know about it. Okay, so digression aside there, I have this image of male strippers suddenly. I find it quite hard to side with those who claim that a woman can never really, truly, honestly choose to work in any of the adult industries on the grounds that they are inherently exploitative, and a woman just cannot choose to do that because she is choosing to be exploited. If those fields were inherently exploitative, then it wouldn't matter which gender was doing them. It would be exploitation no matter what. And I'll give you a counterexample, so before I continue with this logical progression, let's take another example where I'm going to give you an example, and hopefully you'll see immediately why gender is not a factor here. Okay, when you are raped, is it a bad thing? Okay, I think for virtually everyone who just heard that question, they did not immediately think, well, it depends on whether I'm a man or a woman. If you ask someone the question, is starring in a porn film a bad thing, is the answer categorically yes or no? Or do you have to ask further questions? Do you want to know, well, what's the gender of the person, and how much are they getting paid, and what are they being asked to do, and and are they just doing it as a one-off, or is it a friend making the video, or are they making it themselves? If you're having to ask these questions, then it's not a by definition exploitative thing, is it? It's something that requires further consideration in the way that rape doesn't. So, going back to that question of are these fields inherently exploitative? Well, I think I've just shown that they can't be, because as soon as you start removing the question of females doing this and actually apply it to people, to humans, then suddenly it doesn't become quite so clear cut. And if that's the case, then it's not the issue. The issue here is not gender. The issue here is, what is the role? What is it that someone's being asked to do? And you need to unpack that further if you want to come to a sort of clear, logical and rational conclusion. The example I always like to throw into conversations like this, when there is the question of someone makes a statement of well, porn is inherently damaging to women, I have to say to them, well, can assure you, no women were harmed in the production of the porn that I watch. Moving slightly further out of the realms of the adult entertainment industry, but it's still being something that's pertinent to what we're talking about, I would have to say that I think that it's not what the job is in itself that makes it exploitative, or the gender of the person involved, but it's actually the conditions and the manner of that person's employment that counts. I don't see why someone making minimum wage in McDonald's, doing a job they hate, and feeling they have no option but to do that job because they haven't got the skills, or they're in a circumstance where there's no opportunity for them to do anything else, is in a better situation than someone who chooses to star in porn, or indeed work as an escort. If the former person is not getting paid well, doesn't like it, and has no choice but to do it, and the latter person maybe enjoys it sometimes, but doesn't other times, hates the other job, but is paid well enough for it to be worth doing, and genuinely is choosing, i.e. isn't being sex trafficked from Lithuania and held against their will in a brothel/prison. Well, I'm sorry, but I think the McDonald's worker is actually getting a far worse deal than the sex worker. I would say they're being exploited more, in fact. Again, to give another example, if you were to say who's worse off, McDonald's worker or a hot go-go boy, then I think I'd go for the McDonald's worker. Sorry, I just wanted to show that video. So in conclusion, I would say, like my fellow YouTuber, Bionic Dance, without actually breaking copyright on her phrase, don't run on autopilot on issues as pertinent as these. They're important, and we really need to think them through before making such concrete statements as X is exploitation and Y is damaging to one half of the planet. This has been Illuminatiprimus saying thanks for watching, and if you want to see more vids from me, of course, then thumbs up, and if you haven't already done so, then please subscribe.